Every country has laws that sound completely stupid, and when it comes to motorcycles, this is no exception. Around the world, lawmakers have decided to throw in some laws that are so strange, so unnecessary, and sometimes so hilariously outdated, you're not going to believe they're real. And in this list, there's an insanely funny law. Let's just say it involves ice cream, a motorcycle, and a law that still exists to this day. But before we get there, let's head over to Illinois with a rule that has every biker rolling their eyes. If you're in Illinois and you like ape hangers or high-rise bars, better measure them, because handlebars that rise above the rider's shoulders, illegal. Yep, under state law, if your grips are higher than your shoulders when seated, you could get pulled over. The idea was to reduce instability and improve rider control, but in reality, it just slays your custom vibe. And it's not just Illinois. Several US states have similar laws with slight variations in measurement. In California, for example, your bars can't be more than 6 inches above the seat. But this is just the beginning, as even what you're wearing can be made illegal. For this one, we have to go all the way to the Philippines, where you can get fined for wearing slippers while riding. In the Philippines, there are places where motorcycle riders must wear closed-toe shoes. Why? Safety. Officials argue that slippers don't offer any protection and can slide off during emergency maneuvers, which is fair enough. But when you look deeper into it, it gets very silly. In most areas, there's no requirement for gloves or even riding jackets. So you could be helmeted, shirtless, but as long as your feet are covered, you're good. And speaking of helmets, let's head back to the US, over to Michigan specifically, where there is a rule that will blow your mind. In Michigan, helmets are optional, but only if you have $20,000 in health insurance. Michigan used to have a strict helmet law, but in 2012, they tweaked it. Now, adult riders can go without a helmet, but only if they meet certain conditions. You must be 21 or older, have at least 2 years of riding experience, or complete an approved safety course, and have $20,000 in medical coverage. Yes, the state literally put a dollar value on your head. It's one of the most bizarre compromises between freedom and safety ever written into law. It basically says, wear a helmet unless you can afford not to. But these kind of laws aren't just crazy in the US. If Europe has its own set of rules that are just stupid. In Denmark, you must check under your vehicle before driving. And the funniest part is, this isn't exclusive to just motorcycles, but to any kind of vehicle. Before you start your engine in Denmark, you're legally required to check underneath your vehicle to make sure no one is hiding there. Sounds like a spy movie, right? The law was originally meant to protect mechanics or animals, but in today's world it just seems excessive. Especially when applied to motorcycles. Like, what exactly are we checking for? A squirrel? An ambitious cat? Still, it's written into law, and breaking it technically makes you a criminal in Denmark. But hey, at least they don't make you swap your bike out because of its color. Yes, if you are a courier in New Zealand, your motorcycle can't be black. This one's ultra-specific. In New Zealand, courier riders who operate commercially are not allowed to ride black motorcycles. Why? Visibility. The idea is that black bikes are harder to spot on the road, especially in bad weather. So, in the early 2000s, certain delivery companies and local councils began enforcing color restrictions. Riders had to use brighter colors or apply high-vis stickers to comply. It wasn't a full nationwide law, but it caused enough confusion and pushback that the policy has lingered in urban myths ever since. But let's head back to the US for a second and go to the state that just loves to regulate everything, California. Lane splitting is legal, but only if you're smart about it. California is the only US state that explicitly legalizes lane splitting, but the way it's enforced is straight up strange. There's no specific speed limit tied to splitting. Instead, the law says it must be done safely and prudently. What does that mean? Nobody knows. Officers use their own discretion. Some will let you split at 30 miles per hour. Others might pull you over at 15 miles per hour if they think it's too aggressive. It creates a strange legal gray area where what's allowed one day might get you ticketed the next, all depending on who's watching. But things can get even more vague when you head over to the south, because in Texas they have this rule. You can carry a passenger, but only if you have passenger foot pegs. Seems logical, right? But here's where it gets funny. In Texas, if you give someone a lift on your bike, the bike must have passenger pegs and the passenger must use them. This law exists in many states, but it's rarely enforced unless you're already getting pulled over for something else. Still, imagine being ticketed because your buddy decided to dangle their feet like a child in a high chair. Let's give the US a break for a second and talk about our friends from down under in Australia. In Victoria, standing up while riding is illegal. Even off-road, motorcyclists in the Australian state of Victoria can be fined for standing on the pegs while the bike is in motion, even though it's a common dirt riding practice. The law assumes that standing reduces your control, despite every off-road training course teaching it as a skill. It's led to riders getting fined during charity rides, trail events, and even casual countryside cruising. You could literally get a ticket for riding with good form. But some laws kinda make sense. Let's go to Southeast Asia for a second. In Thailand, you must wear a shirt while riding. Thailand police can and will stop riders who are shirtless, even if they're wearing a helmet, gloves, boots, the whole deal. Why? Decency. It's considered improper to ride bare-chested in public, even in sweltering heat. So while jeans and flip-flops might fly, the lack of a t-shirt can get you fined. We're not saying you should ride shirtless, but we are saying this law is oddly specific. But to get even more specific, we need to head back to Europe. Engine revving at stoplights is illegal in Germany. Revving your engine, especially on a sport bike or custom cruiser, might be your way of signaling excitement, but in many German cities, it's considered a public disturbance. Even if you're just sitting at a red light, if you twist that throttle and the engine screams, you can be fined for causing unnecessary noise. There are even noise detection cameras installed in places like Stuttgart and Munich that record plate numbers for loud offenders. And here's one that gets a bit cold. In Minnesota, no riding on sidewalks, unless it's snowing. Motorcycles are banned from sidewalks naturally. But the law includes a bizarre clause. In snowy conditions, if a motorcycle can't access the street, it may temporarily use sidewalks to get to a road provided it doesn't endanger pedestrians. Imagine rolling down a snowy sidewalk next to people shoveling their driveways. Technically, you're legal. It's meant to help snow-trapped riders, but still, seeing a bike navigate the curb like a snowmobile, that's a sight. But, speaking of ice, there is a rule we mentioned at the start, and it involves ice cream. In the UK, ice cream trucks can't operate from a motorcycle. According to old UK regulations, ice cream vendors must operate out of motor vehicles capable of being stationary for food sale purposes. That excludes motorcycles, scooters, and even some three-wheeled bikes. The result? If you strapped a freezer to your Goldwing and played that classic jingle, you'd technically be violating food safety laws. Why does this matter? Because people have tried it. Motorbike-based food vendors are on the rise, but in many places, they're banned for being too mobile. This law still applies in several districts. So, your dream of becoming an ice cream bike hero? Crushed by bureaucracy. But stupidity doesn't stop here, because take a look at this one out of Singapore. In Singapore, you can't ride a motorcycle if it's been parked for too long. Yes, really. If your bike has been parked on a public road or driveway for more than a month without being moved, the authorities can fine or even impound it as an abandoned vehicle. And this applies even if it's registered and you just forgot to flip it over. So in Singapore, move it or lose it. Even a registered, helmeted, full-gear rider can get in trouble for leaving their bike parked too long. Ride it or lose it, no excuses. And going back to the US, here is, without a shadow of a doubt, the most absurd law we've found. In Connecticut, it's illegal to ride your motorcycle in a circle. In some areas of Connecticut, local ordinances prohibit exhibition riding in parking lots, which includes figure eights, burnouts, and repetitive circular riding. If you're doing tight loops or U-turn drills in a lot, that can be labeled as stunt riding, even if you're just practicing slow speed control. It's like the state said, you can ride, but don't get good at it. But legislation doesn't stop there, because just as specific and absurd laws against bikes, there's been many bikes that have been flat out outlawed and banned. I made a full video on this. If you want to watch, just click it on screen now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.